It's star 1978, star 378, Nicole Cattaruzza. It's Earth, Solar System, Milky Way, Universe, Galaxies broken. I'm. This is what is flying highest in my area. I did notice this painting above my head. I went to a gala once. I was invited. I wore a black and white dress. And I had the flower in my hair. I also went to a wedding. I was invited to one of the few that I attended. I was in the wedding, asked to be in the wedding, and I think I've only been in one wedding um, in my adulthood. Anyhow, um, so I woke this morning with this image of hummingbird and flower, something to mull over, I suppose, to think about in the quietness. And so I am. Knowing that once upon a time there was a hummingbird that came to visit, suppose, most important, powerful conversation, although there was very little discussed. Just a whole lot of admiring, respectfully. So anyhow, so I'm thinking of that this morning. Brings me back to a memory that I really have had very little access to as I go through my daily whatever in this area. Not sure if it has to do with sheep, flock, horses, cattle, dogs, cats. Depends on what's raining. I'm not really sure. And so I have that in my head. I was just sitting eating my breakfast in the dining room. Linda was in the living room watching something called The Artificially Intelligent, with the humans speaking freely in this area on whatever their intuitively driven subliminal is telling their bugle to trumpet. And so it's a way of explaining how humans work. But anyhow, so Kelly and Ryan were there, and Ryan makes mention just out of the blue, and I just happened to catch it, that he had a Tandy computer. And I'm like, whoa. I've heard it, but it was not a household word. And then he asks to the audience and his producer, he says, was that a service merchandise? And I'm like, whoa, keywords there. Service was giving out merchandise or was selling merchandise? What service? And I didn't have a Tandy. And then they shout back at him, no, that was Radio Shack. And I'm like, oh, retail operated? I mean, again, I have a red bearded father, and I know the machine that he was given in order to introduce me in private privy house to whatever it was. I know the name of it. Was not Tandy, and I did not know there was some arrangement with service merchandise. I've heard of the retail operation Radio Shack. I don't even know if that still exists. And then the progression of the machines. I know what they had in the Lloyd Harbor arrangement, and then what was in Private House that Lewis was introduced to with his red beard and whatever, knowing that he had one daughter who was whatever I was in A-Way, and then moved to Glenway. The machine came with us, although by that point, I don't know. So I don't know how I went from that machine and that name into this other community machine name, being that that seems to be an integral part of the inside matrix of, however, sheep's, shepherds, flocks, and hummingbirds that have flowers in the garden that they want to keep to themselves for whatever reason, that they're allowed to do such in respectful ways. So I'm looking around after this fourth decade where it started off, where the garden, the technique, the quiet arrival, and the selection process seemed to be correct at some point. I mean, I know there was whatever, but then there was just some kind of disruption. And then eventually it led to some donkey 76 problem and then a 75 problem. Now it seems with the movies, the artificial and the human intelligence, seems like a lot of common law faux pas that now become accessories after the fact, for which I don't really see people stepping up and taking responsibility, but here we are. So I'm looking for modus operandi in the field, and lo and behold, the artificially intelligent in whatever they do, they named Keytruda. Now it's interesting because it looks like key and intruder, the key intruder or the key intrusive. They speak about it in the context, and it's the drug company Merck. Murky set of circumstances this area has gotten themselves into. Holy cow. And then it's got Key and Truda. Now that also in the center of that word is TRU. Now there was there was a former president by the name of Truman who did something and murked up the entire service arrangement with breaking down barriers and things, which I don't know if that seemed like a good idea at the time, but if you know polymathematics and polyscience, it makes management and neat and tidy and the gardening really treacherous, almost like a minefield, a battlefield with mines hidden, and just sending unsuspecting children out into the field. Just common law, accessories after the fact, all over the place. How does one protect one's children in this scenario? So I'm watching this cancer drug, Keytruda, happens to be after the intruders, after this key fact of Truman broke apart the service arrangement. And now there's like all this underground stuff going on. And I'm like, where did the hummingbird go? I know I have not seen a hummingbird since like mid-90s. Like that's my last time calculus from my calcaneus in endoskeletons for the last time I saw even a small shred of powerful intelligence in the field. Unannounced. I mean, again, it's a hummingbird. They just, I'm just a flower in the field. So I'm looking at this, and it's like they almost tell on themselves in this Kelvin system of measuring black holes, and eventually you have partial collapses and things happen, and then they have to build some kind of arrangement or agreement somewhere between pharmaceutical, the warlord, the drug lord, the landlord. They have to make some kind of private equity arrangement for the devastation that was caused in land management. Not that anybody takes responsibility for that. But I'm watching it unfold in artificial intelligence and how the humans then try to backpedal their own participation in this. And I'm just like, wow. Yeah, that keeping me away thing really did work on some level of who are you going to rely on in holes in the matrix and trying to figure stuff out for the safety of one's redheaded daughter, the redheaded father to the... I'm blonde, so again, like the only argument in my season that may have even sprouted up is between redheads and blondes. But again, I'm not getting into that because I'm only one daughter and I know what my parents have. So it's just, here we are. And I know they take things that's doctors and spin and try to make more arguments out of whatever, but I don't have a dog in that fight.
Everyone remembers the moment they heard, "You have cancer," how their world stopped, and when they found a way to face it. For some, this is where their Keytruda story begins. Keytruda, a breakthrough immunotherapy that may treat certain cancers.
A breakthrough immunotherapy. So I'm just curious, is that what President Truman's campaign bought in private equity terms and sharecroppers in the future with the way this is being handled at some kind of inflat ION? Just curious.
One of those cancers.
It even I mean, like, again, I studied histology, epithelial, squamous, then you go to tissues, you go connective, muscle, adipose, whatever. It even says non-squamous, advanced non-squamous. At levels of intelligence in my quietness of knowing what I've know because of my whatever series of rooms that they set up. I mean, even in the word patterns, I can appreciate this I mean, like, they weren't square. Right, yeah, got it. The square root of, in irrational beings and some rationale that still needs to be upheld. And then some quantitative, like computation, only like really scary scientists in some field of study that it's like they're just doing this for fun because they had really important parents when they arrived. I mean, like, talk about getting the star lotto.
Is advanced non-squamous non-small cell lung cancer, where Keytruda is approved to be used with certain chemotherapies as your first treatment if you do not have an abnormal EGFR or ALK gene.
Keytruda helps your immune system fight
EGFR in the big wide worlds of alphabet soup and ALK, ALK. Anybody let ALF know? I'm just, again, I don't know where horses and horseshoes on an escalator. Like, I'm really not quite, I'm just the one horse on the escalator at this point. It's like a centaur. I have 2 points in space and time I created with my own body cavity, a single sun in my solar system. So at planetary, it's kind of an important fact. It's a little above common law with all these accessories that keep painting themselves into my matrix appearance and then causing me all sorts of issues with how do you explain that one? Well, it's really simple. Just depends on what level of escalator ride you're on or what other kind of calendar events are going on.
fight cancer, but can also cause your immune system to attack healthy parts of your body. This can happen during or after treatment and may be severe and lead to death. See your doctor right away if you have cough, shortness of breath, chest pain, diarrhea, severe stomach pain or tenderness, severe nausea or vomiting, headache, light sensitivity, eye problems, irregular heartbeat, extreme tiredness, constipation, dizziness or fainting, changes in appetite, thirst, or urine, confusion or memory problems, muscle pain or weakness, fever, rash, itching, or flushing. These are not all the possible side effects. Tell your doctor about all your medical conditions, including immune system problems, or if you've had an organ transplant, had or plan to have a stem cell transplant, or have had radiation to your chest area or a nerve.
Oh my God, the possibilities on stem cell transplant really frightens me of being held at bay with Alexander on the ocean side. I'm on the bay side, Alexander's on the ocean side, and there's like we both have arms and legs. So we also both have our own separate respectable navels. So this gets really confusing when like who what STEM like science, technology, engineering and mathematics, that kind of stem cell transplants. No, that's the kind that frightens me. Like who's in charge of that kind of takeover and macrophage? Because I'm pretty sure hummingbird, like flower to hummingbird, I mean,
Nervous system.
oh, look, it even says it's a nervous system condition. Myasthenia gravis or Julian Barr's this. And here's my whole thing. It's like I'm wondering if I'm having cardiac ischemia at the moment. And I'm going to try to run, but my legs aren't working very well. And there's some kind of spinal compression going on. I see it all over the televised, which would, if there's spinal compression, I know that there's some form of motor neuron interaction. Then this morning they were talking, Linda said something about two of these avant-garde circus performers in the larger entertainment world, and she's talking about how this one has with his green bangs and black hair and has a really close brother. She's got some kind of motor neuron like disruptor that happens to her. It's really rare. And I'm just like, ay, Lynn. I'm like, yeah, all right, no, I'm just taking note of it. Thanks.
Today, Keytruda is FDA approved to treat 16 types of advanced cancer and is being studied in hundreds of clinical trials, exploring ways to treat even more types of cancer.
Now, is that like they're all studying the same thing at the same time? How does any individual ever get to the correct hummingbird as the correct flower in one season if all of a sudden you have all of these humans and their curiosity in how the night sky works, how it may have been torn, and who holds it up in. There was some point in between a hole in time and space where I was taken to meet two individuals, I as myself. They don't use names. One introduced himself as the weatherman. The other introduced himself as Father of Time. I naturally just went into whatever. And I was like, I'm Mother of Nature, if that's how I'd introduce myself. Same person. Different scene.
Cancer. It's true. Keytruda from Merck. See the different types of cancer Keytruda is approved to treat at Keytruda.com and ask your doctor if Keytruda.
Now, it's interesting when I break down the word. It's key. It has true. Looks like it's part Truman for decor. There's a registered trademark on it. It also has this feature of two things coming into one. It then has this Merck reference. It talks about patients, families, and healthcare providers and clinical trials. Last time I checked, when somebody gets sick, they really have no patience. It's amazing how schedules just change. This is really interesting. It's there's a mention they mention white elephant in the room and that they play this game. I was like, that's interesting. And then they mention this name Michael, who I don't know who that is to them. And then they give an answer, and I'm like, what a surprise.
Oh, yeah.
Michael was furious. Michael was furious because he's like, I'm on my own, guys. I'm on my own. And you're all living off your parents still. He's like, you don't have to worry about your meals.
A little sympathy.
College is providing you. And we were like,
College is provided. Now, which college? I'm just curious. Because I wasn't offered that as a possibility. I mean, I was supposed to have hummingbird flower relationship in respectful. I went to a college. I was interviewed by a college. I was dropped off by a college to Glenway. I was told I would hear from the college. And then
That's like.
I should have sat in a different chair. What can I tell you? Should have picked a different chair. I don't know what to tell you. But it was really.
Well, I love all the chickens home for Thanksgiving. That's happiness for Mama. I know that.
Setting them off was hard. It was hard. Like saying goodbye was.
If they were treated like stars, they'll be back.
Yes, you know what? Joaquin sent this text.
so I'm going to go out for attempts at a run right now. But so that's Live with Kelly and Ryan, and it's S7E61, which aired for me in New York on Monday, 11/28, 2022. So on there, wherever it was, they mentioned something about this computer, this Tandy, and merchant service. And I'm like, I just met when I went to a specific church invitation. I went one Sunday and I actually met in insignia uniform 3 people who are attending what they refer to as merchant marine. And I was able to speak to them, which was very, very nice, not having ever met any in uniform and insignia. And then to hear that that's where they were selling this computer, I did not know. I know Radio Shack had some, at some point, computer parts before big retail got into it. But again, I'm not quite sure at that level of franchise, branding, marketing, national, anything. And then the corporate side, not quite sure. Being a way, not sure how any of that is intricately involved linguistically or logistically. But it is decade 4, and I have some other concerns with what's actually transpired.